Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Carl.
Good to see you, Ethan.
Yeah.
Great to be here with you.
Yeah, thanks for making it in. So, you were born and raised here in Alabama?
Yeah, I was born in Mobile, lived here till I was about 7, and actually moved to Sylacauga area and graduated from school there and moved back. So, moved back here and met my wife, and the rest is history.
Nice. Where's Sylacauga from here?
Sylacauga is due be northeast, up near Auburn.
Okay.
I used to tell people it's halfway between Auburn and Birmingham's. Give you some idea.
Good. That's a good reference.
Yeah.
You spent the last 4 years in D.C.?
I have.
How was it there?
You know, there's good and bad. The people and the relationships and the friendships you make up there are incredible.
Mm-hmm.
The exposure to younger people up there, staff. That whole city is run by 20-something-year-olds. And it's exciting, especially if somebody gets a little age on them and you get back around a young staff, it gives you a lot of energy and a lot of hope for tomorrow. Really. Yeah.
Right. That's how you and I got in contact as your staff. One of my friends and your former staffer is Elizabeth. Yeah. Shout out Elizabeth. Thank you.
Yeah. We call her Busy.
Yeah.
Or that was her mother's nickname for her. Everybody in the office had a nickname.
What was your nickname?
I don't know that I had one.
The boss doesn't get one.
They didn't say it to my face anyway. Okay. Yeah, they call me boss. I mean, that was pretty common. Yeah. So,
how'd you choose or find your staff members?
The very first staff member that I knew I wanted was a guy by the name of Chad Carlo, and he had worked for Bradley Byrne, and he had left Congressman Byrne and gone to work for the Trump team, and I knew I wanted him back as chief of staff. And I also took a young man that helped me throughout my campaign, Zach Weilich. I knew I wanted Zach to be with me. And between those two, they did all the hiring and all the firing. You got to figure out in life what you're good at and what you're bad at. And I'm horrible at hiring people. I hire all the wrong people for all the right reasons. And my entire life with all my businesses, I've always got someone else to do the hiring, and it works out best.
What were your initial experiences with making the wrong hirings?
I'm a salesman, so, I'm naturally attracted to people that are trying to, be a salesman, that salesman type personality. And sometimes you need people that don't have a salesman type personality. They need more of a focused personality, especially in DC. The people we had were great. We had great staff. We really did, and I give all that credit to Zach and to Chad.
Mm-hmm. Would you recommend DC for another young person like me coming out of school?
For a young man, yes. It's a great experience. Don't try to make a living out of it because you can't. I mean, the salaries are in this area. $40,000 a year salary starting out is a great salary. But in DC, everything's twice the price. Living expenses are very high. It's a struggle unless you got family that's going to actually help you. But to get 2, 4, 6 years on the Hill is an incredible training and learning how the government works and be able to bring that back to wherever home is. Think your home is in Dallas-Fort Worth or in Mobile. It's a great tool to come back with. You understand it better than most people. But the young folks up there, they really work together. They take care of one another. It's a wonderful town. It's a very liberal town, obviously, and I'm not a liberal person. But again, I just enjoy watching the young people and how they function up there, and they keep these congressmen and these senators going and speeches they write and things they can throw together. I mean, it's just incredible to watch. So, yeah, I would encourage you to do that.
Right. Yeah, I visited twice, and I have a cousin that goes to George Mason in Fairfax.
Oh, yeah.
So got to see him, and then did a Capitol tour with Busy.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it was phenomenal. I'm having a bad day, I'll go scroll through those pictures and, see the
Did she take you down in the crib, see where Washington was supposed to be buried?
No, we didn't do that, but we got on the floor, speaker floor.
Yeah.
And
that's good.
On the speaker's balcony, too.
Oh, no, that's pretty rare.
Yeah, and shot those pictures back home to Texas, and no one could believe it.
Yeah, well, so Busy's working obviously with Mike Johnson now,
Mm-hmm.
but she's on the inside looking out. She's about as deep rooted as you can get.
I know.
And I told Mike he wouldn't make a mistake by hiring her, and I'm sure he's glad he did. Her being from Louisiana didn't hurt either.
No.
I mean, between her and between Mike Johnson and Steve Scalise, they're both from Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
When he won Speaker of the House, even the salt they were throwing outside on the ice, it was purple. So for Louisiana, purple. So everything turned purple up there overnight. So
mm-hmm.
it was fun. I used to love to aggravate him about that.
Yeah. So you mentioned how Washington's a liberal city and all that. Our country's conservative, given Trump's win in the last election. Why would the capital for our country, how does it get blue if the majority of the country is red?
I truly can't answer that. It's not a hidden fact. Everyone knows how liberal the city itself is, and the capital itself is pretty liberal. When I say liberal in our standards, it's liberal. A Republican from New York, and this is what most voters don't understand, but a Republican, quote unquote, conservative in New York, if you transplanted that congressperson into the South, you would consider him to be a screaming liberal. I mean, the definition of liberal changes and it fluctuates depending on the area. And D.C. is a very liberal town compared to our standards here
mm-hmm.
in South Alabama.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Of course, the mayor and all the elected officials, and it's pretty liberal up there.
Mm-hmm. What got you interested in public office?
Well, I've always had businesses. I've always ran businesses and started companies. And my son got deployed, joined the Marine Corps, and got deployed into Afghanistan. And I felt like, shipping a 20-something-year-old off to war, it makes you stop and think, what have you done? And I couldn't come up with anything I had done to give back to my community. So I found a place to serve, which was county commission.
Mm-hmm.
I served there for 2 terms for 8 years and loved it. I truly did.
Mm-hmm.
This opportunity for the House seat came up. I've always been focused on veteran issues, obviously because of my son. And my wife and I talked about it, and she said, here's your chance to really get close enough where you can make some changes in the veteran community. So ran for the House, won 2019.
Incredible.
Yeah, well, that's the way it works. If you really get on the inside and start meeting these congressmen, you find out they're all normal people. They all have similar stories. They all got into politics for personal reasons, and it's not money, it's not fame, it's not fortune. It's usually a personal thing that got them involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just normal people.
How much fame really comes with being a congressman? When you're out in public, would people be noticing you, seeing you, saying hi? In the district. And now that I'm not in office, I get even more. A restaurant the other night, the maitre d', we got ready to leave. He thanked me for my service, and I thought, how cool is that? That just really makes it all worthwhile. Yeah.
But, you're in D.C., you're one of 435. So unless you have your pin on, you have a congressional pin you wear around town, mm-hmm. or wear it on the hill. It's the only time I wore it.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as people don't recognize you, you're just another suit up there.
Mm-hmm. What committees did you serve on when you were there?
So the first committee I got on was a House Armed Service Committee, served with Mike Rogers out of Anniston, Gadsden area, and natural resources. And both of those had so much to do with this area. Natural resources, obviously, we have so many natural resources in South Alabama and the whole Gulf Coast, if you think about it, between the Rice's Well and the drilling, our timber industry, so on and so forth. So that was a niche, a real good committee for me to be on. And,
mm-hmm.
and on House Armed Service Committee, with our ship producing in this area with Austell, with Ingalls right next door to us. That was a natural committee for me to be on also. So I moved up to appropriations in the second round. In appropriations, usually you do not have a second committee because they want you to focus just on appropriations, but I managed to keep myself on natural resources.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's what best serves this community.
Right. So when choosing a committee, is it you apply or do they ask you to come on?
You run for it just like you do anything else. I mean, there's on the House Armed Service Committee, I don't know for a fact, they never tell you, what that breakdown is, but there were probably 10 people running for that same seat. And you make the rounds to all the decision makers and state your case and why. On appropriations the same way. Why? They want to make sure you're on a good committee that you can. I want to make sure I was on a good committee to serve my community.
Right.
And I also want a committee that fit my personality. So natural resources, I've always been an outdoorsman. I always hunted and fished my entire life. So that was a natural one for me. And then, of course, armed service, I knew with Austell, being on county commission for 8 years, I've worked with Austell, Airbus. I've worked with all the major manufacturers here. I understood how important that is to the business community here. So that was my focus for that one.
Gotcha. What were the big initiatives you're working on with pertaining to natural resources?
Natural resources is a good one to start. We have an underwater forest. I don't know if you know that. That's roughly, they won't give me the coordinates, but it's roughly about 40 miles off Gulf shores. And it's petrified cypress growth that's several million years old that we're trying to preserve. There was a company came down here that wanted to harvest them and make furniture out of it. And it's still active wood. It is preserved down in that sand. And, of course, one of the hurricanes exposed it, and that's how we found it. I was trying to get it turned into a national park where we could still fish it and dive on it. And the furniture companies couldn't generate that. Just before I got out, we had it all passed. It got to the Senate, and they didn't like some wording in it, so they sent it back. But it'll get passed.
Good.
But that's just one. The Rice's well came into the Gulf at that time. The NOAA claimed there was, they're endangered species, and basically they wanted to shut down boat traffic in the Gulf of Mexico, or the Gulf of Americas now.
Yeah.
They wanted to shut it down. Daytime hours limited to 12 miles per hour. Nighttime, no movement at all. And by doing that, you would shut down the oil industry. That would just kill Louisiana. It would affect all of us around the Gulf Coast region. So I constantly fought and pushed back on that. At that time, they had never seen a rice well in the Gulf of Americas. They'd never seen that. So I kept pointing out, how many's here, quote unquote. They said 57. You think you've heard them, but you've never seen them, but yet you want to shut down, basically the oil industry. That would have just stopped it altogether.
Yeah.
So, those are some of the fights we had. Timber industry is huge in the state of Alabama. We're always working on timber issues. The California fire is a good example. We would always use Alabama and how Alabama does control burns and keep those fires from breaking out in the state of Alabama. So it's important that we get that message out. And it was always an honor for me for the committee to use Alabama and how Alabama did that as a point of reference, trying to convince California to change their ways, in which they haven't. They'll keep finding endangered species, reasons not to burn that timber, that undergrowth, or cleaning that undergrowth out for that matter. And you're going to continue to have fires just like that. That God designed that area for that. The pine cones look like big pieces of wax. I mean, it's always had fire. Millions of acres used to burn, 500, 600 years ago. And the pine cones were designed where the heat would actually melt the wax from around the pine cone, and the seeds would come out for the replanting. I mean, it's a nature. It's not an odd thing out there, but humans try to build their houses in the middle of that, and that's what you actually get from it. So you can take some precautions and try to cut back on it. But the state of California, they're not going to do that. They're very focused on their quote unquote environmental issues. Most people don't realize, but Alabama has got the most endangered species list of any state in the nation.
Really?
We do. We've got, I think it's like 167 different endangered species here. We've got more of everything. We've got more fish species. We've got more bird species. We've got more than any other state in the continental United States. And so we're a very environmental sensitive state, and we do a great job of what we handle.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very proud of that. And on natural resources, I was able to use that as a point of reference. When they want to start talking about endangered species, you can't just kill an entire industry that families are feeding themselves. And I'm talking about, when you start talking about the petroleum industry, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about not just the drillers, not just the pumpers, not just the boats. You're talking about the people down the line that actually use it. Everything in this room has got a petroleum product of some type in it. So it's got a domino effect that would just destroy us as a country. So natural resources are pretty important in our area.
Most definitely. Most definitely. What do you think is the greatest goal that people in power need to work towards for our country?
Being up there and seeing, I think there's a lot of people that could certainly stand to be humbled a little bit. I think the only true control is out of control. There's no such thing as controlling anything, but when it gets out of control, there's no control in the out of control.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's that way in politics. I think most everyone gets into it for all the right reasons, but they let the power go to their head.
Mm-hmm.
And it at least it gets interpreted that way. And watching them on the floor and how they would just stir up an issue just to have something to talk about back home, that was a little disheartening for me because I'm a businessman. I'd rather sit in the back room and get an issue worked out. Everybody's not happy, but they're satisfied and they walk away versus, getting on the floor and trying to just tear one another apart. That's just not good business where I'm from.
What did you do to build your business before politics?
Yeah, my personal business, just hard work. You set a standard that everybody understands.
Mm-hmm.
You're the first one there. You're the last one to go home. You take in mind the people that work for you. They do have life after work, and they do have children. I mean, I was raised by a single mother, so especially when you're running businesses, you get a lot of single parents. Mm-hmm. You have to keep that in mind. They're going to have a special event at a school, or it's a child's birthday. Make sure they go home a little early. Make sure they know they can take time off. Come to you and ask. I've got an event at school. Can I come in? 11 o'clock instead of 9 o'clock. And be happy with them. Just, oh yeah, you need to go see that and be part of that. Mm-hmm. So,
help builds loyalty with your.
It does, but it also plants a seed in them that I hope that they want to do the same thing with their businesses in the future. Same way with all the young people in Washington that work for me. I want to make sure they had a good experience. Yes, we had bad days. That's just life. But when we had good days, I wanted everyone to participate in it. I wanted them. One day when they look back, they go, boy, that was a great 2 years. I served up in Washington, or that was a great 4 years. I had so much fun and I learned so much. And that gray-haired old man, taught me a little bit about life.
Yeah. I know Elizabeth really enjoyed it. She was texting me this morning. She's like, no way you get to sit down with Mr. Carl. Like, send me a selfie.
She knows me well enough.
Yeah.
I would do this.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully you're going to make some extra grades from it, right?
I'll try my best. I'll see where I can use it.
Yeah, use it.
Yeah. Next point is, what do you think is the most important action that President Trump needs to take or has already taken?
I think Trump has taken it. I think Trump going through the books is probably the single most important thing that's happened to this country in 100 years. Mm-hmm. I served on some committees, and we would try to get information especially on the appropriation side, and we would get stalled. We couldn't get numbers, or we couldn't get the information we were looking for. They're masters at hiding and covering things. And
how did that start? Like, who is the master? Like, why is there all this, kind of collusion and stuff on behind the scenes? Like, where did that start come from?
Well, that start is from bureaucrats that have been up there for years and years and years, and they wanted to make sure their jobs are security, yeah. And so much what we're seeing now, that's black op money. That's money that's being used in other places. They will sign it off as being the USAID, for example, is one of the largest purchasers of peanut butter. And they make these little strip packs that they send to all these foreign countries, and it's for young kids and adults. It's quick protein. It's easy. It doesn't have a shelf life. It's got a very long shelf life. So those are the good things we do. But you send a $48 million budget of peanuts, and $8 million of it actually winds up in peanut butter, and the other 40 winds up doing some black ops stuff in these governments that we don't need to be fooling around in. But I think the most important thing that Trump is doing right now is he's exposing that. Now, is all of it bad? No, it's not all bad. There's some good in there. It's like everything else in life. But we've got to make it through this. We as a country, we've got to be serious about cutting that bad stuff out, using that money to pay our debt down, not to raise our spending, but to pay debt down and get it back under control. That's the only way we're going to fix it. And Trump's in a position that he can do it in the way he's doing it. No one else could do that. Only the president could do that, what he's doing. And that's the executive powers. That is what executive powers, in my opinion, were actually set up for. Because as a congressman, I'm one of 435 people in the room. If the other 434 disagreed with me, I could scream all I want. I'm not going to get any help.
Right. Have you had the chance to sit down with Mr. Trump?
I have. I've spent some time with him. I was trying to think how many times, probably 4 or 5 times, 2 or 3 times on the telephone. You know, it's to me, he's a funny guy.
What's it like talking to him?
You understand he's the alpha in the room. I mean, just him being there, he's the alpha. But he cares. He wants to know more about you. I met Paul Newman one time, which was absolutely fascinating, sitting in a hotel. It's a good example. And when Paul Newman walked by, I assume you know who Paul Newman is. Cool Hand Luke. If you hadn't seen the movie, man up, watch the movie, put it down. Cool Hand Luke.
Cool Hand Luke.
Yeah, when he walked by, I said, "Why 50 eggs, Luke? Why 50 eggs?" That's one of the lines from it. He came down, sat next to me, and for about 2 hours we just sat. But we had to make a deal. He could ask me a question, and I could ask him a question. So, because he was more interested in me than I was in him. And Trump's that way. He wants to know what you're thinking. He wants to know, what your motivations are. He's looking for your strengths. He's looking for your weaknesses. He can read a room probably better than anyone I've ever seen. And I'm pretty good at reading a room myself. Nothing like him.
Wow.
And it's not perfect. I'm quick. Yeah, no one's perfect. He certainly has his faults, but his gifts certainly outweigh that.
So your business before politics, was it timber, or what were you involved in?
Primarily healthcare. We did a little bit of timber management. We owned property up central part of the state, Perry County to be exact, but primarily healthcare. Whether it's pharmacy, home healthcare equipment, we did. We specialized in hemophilia patients, for example. We specialized in.
How'd you get to that specialization?
Yeah, well, I'm a niche guy. I love niche markets. I sit down and eat dinner, and I like the niche things catch my attention. That's just the way I'm wired. We had a friend that had a son with hemophilia, and he wanted to get into business, and we tried to help him get into it. He had some struggles, and we wound up buying a piece of it out, but. Pharmaceuticals, we did a lot of compounding with bronchodilators. We did quite successful at that, and home health care equipment, hospital beds, wheelchairs, oxygen, that type of stuff. So, healthcare is primarily the background, but I owned a bed and breakfast. I did some real estate development, timber, as you said. So I've won and lost a few fights in all those arenas.
What do you think are the emerging industries or sectors that would be good for a young person to get into? Yeah,
I think AI is the future. I think the drone issues, I know you mentioned before we started, your interest in drones. I got to go to Poland. I got to see technology and drones in Poland is far surpassed anything we've ever seen here.
Why are they first to market? Why are they developed
They've
faster?
got the experimental ground over there. They're building them in Poland and trying them in Ukraine. That's simple. They're building drones as small as a cockroach and really
crazy.
And they're as large as a size of an airplane. They can build anything that they want to do whatever they want to do with. And the capabilities from those drones, whether it's to drop a weapon, whether it's to shoot a weapon, whether it is to spy. We went in the field in the training in Poland. They were training the Ukraine army. And we went in the field, and the whole time we're in the field, we can see ourselves on camera. Well, there's a drone so high up you couldn't hear it.
Mm-hmm.
And, I finally asked, where's the drone? They said, oh, it's up there. It's clear blue sky. You can't see a thing. You can't hear a thing. It's up there. So it decided to drop a bomb on us, which was a smoke bomb. But they told us exactly where it was going to hit. Again, don't see it, don't hear it, don't know where it's at. And all of a sudden you see a puff of smoke where they told you it was going to hit. So the technology there, because of where they have to experiment with those drones, is phenomenal. So hopefully we can bring some of that technology back here to the States.
Right. What inspired the trip? Did someone invite you, or did you seek to go?
It was a House Armed Service Committee going over there, Mike Rogers in a group, and they like to take people from appropriations because we have to sell the idea of what we're paying for. I'm not a big supporter of the Ukraine Army. I originally voted for it, but I voted for it against it every time after that. I think Trump's doing a good job of bringing that to an end. I think there's a lot going on behind the scenes that will start surfacing in the next, if not few days, the next few weeks. And that's what we needed, was leaders to get in there and try to settle that down. But I wanted to go over there and see how our money was spent. There's a lot of conversations about weapons being sold in the black market. I went over there and actually looked at how they inventoried, how they track these weapons. Which you always have to take things with a grain of salt when you're on those trips. There's a little bit of truth and a lot of diversion. But we spent a lot of money, or we have spent a lot of money over there. I would like to think it's all for good, but I don't think it is. We need to get out of that. We should have been out of that a long time ago. Is it right for what Putin is doing? By no means is it right. I actually got to go into Ukraine. We took a train. Took us 8 hours to get in there because you can't fly in there. So 8 hours by yourself on a train is a little nerve-wracking.
Some good thinking time.
In the dark at night. But we got to see a lot of what the inside looks like.
Of Ukraine?
Yeah.
Wow.
We didn't go to the front line, but we got to see the way the inventory system's coming in. We're shipping equipment over there at that time. We were shipping equipment over there. It was coming in daily. And their goal was to keep it less than 12 hours. They would process it and move it out to the field, which you get 40,000 guns, and you're trying to get them out in the field in a 12-hour, 18-hour period. That's tough, but they do it.
Yeah. Well, what do you think the end result's going to be with the war?
I think you're probably going to see Russia take up to the river there, and I can't remember the name of the river. And Ukraine will go back to quote unquote normal life, whatever normal is going to be. In a war area like that, you're always going to have explosives that are going to be in the ground. You always run a fear of that. But I think Russia is about wore out. I think Russia's about spent out. I've heard numbers as high as 700,000 deaths.
Jeez.
And I mean, how do you recover from that as a society? Ukraine, I would be a tank driver. You would not. At your age, they're going to keep you at home. Everyone over the age of 25 goes into war. Anyone under the age of 25 stays home. It's just changing society in ways that we've never seen before. In Russia, it's just the opposite. Everybody fights in Russia. If you don't have a major, they don't really care. They don't really care. We were there when some of the first Koreans got killed, and they briefed us on some of that. And these Koreans have got no battlefield experience, none, zero. So they're just running into bullets.
Sad.
Yeah, but war is, and if it's not there, it's going to be somewhere else. We've got obviously Israel. That's one that's very personal to me. My wife and I, which Tina's here with us today. But we got to actually go with Kevin McCarthy and a handful of folks into Israel. The Israelis took us to see things that the tourists don't see. Some of these little communities that are set up, and I can never remember what they're called. I apologize, but they're communities that these Israelis have chosen to raise their family, and it's a community, and and we got to go in there and play with the kids and see their artwork, and we got to spend a day with all these kids, little young children, and we just had an absolute blast. Well, on the 7th, when they crossed under and they slaughtered all those people, McCarthy called me on the 8th, and he says, I want you to realize that all those kids you played with were the kids that they mutilated and they killed. And it became personal for me and my wife at that point.
Up until the 7th, how long ago did you travel there before?
About a year before that. So all those kids and the parents and all of those were part of those 1,800 people. So I understand the Israelis. I understand that they want to do away with Hamas completely. You can't deal with a little bit of Hamas. You have to do away with them completely. I'm a firm supporter of that. That's a totally different type of war. Those Israelis, they're fighting for their lives. And you go there, and I got to spend time in Netanyahu. We got to spend time with the government. We got to learn how their government is set up, which is different than ours. Any one of them can call an election at any time and have an election within just a couple of weeks. It's very different than what we have. But the Israelis encourage different people. There's Palestinians in their, what we would call their Congress. There's Palestinians in there. There's obviously Jewish folks in there. There's all these different Muslims in there. So they really try to set up a democracy there, even more so than we, if you start looking at the people that are involved. Of course, we're such a strong Christian nation, and historically we have been. But once those children were killed, it became very personal to me. So I'm a very strong supporter of the Israelis. Always will be.
Okay.
My grandmother used to say, "Don't mess with the Jews. They're God's chosen people."
That's right. That's right.
She believed that.
Mentioning how, us in the U.S., we're a Christian nation and how grateful we are for that. Why do you feel that modern society is somewhat pulling away from Christianity and faith?
I think a lot of people are replacing Christianity with politics. With social media, with 24/7 news, with everything being pushed at us with politics, I really feel like, and this is my personal feeling, that so many people that are Christians they're using politics, and it's pulling them away from church. It's pulling them away from their quiet time in the morning. It's pulling them away from the things that God needs to reach us and talk to us every day. Being a Christian is not a one-time experience. Being a Christian is a lifestyle that you choose to follow. Being Jewish is a lifestyle you choose to follow. But I think we've got so many things going on now that gets our distraction, that we're losing sight of our Christian roots, or our Jewish roots, or whatever your roots are. That we are a product of our environment, especially when it becomes our religious beliefs, because that's what we grew up and that's what we understand. But I hold firm to the fact that when we get to heaven, we're probably going to be surprised who we bump into up there. Some different folks from different faiths, and they're probably going to be surprised to see us too. So, but I really think politics is taking over too many people's lives.
Yeah, I think it is too. Do you have any strategies for tuning out the modern noise that comes from the phones and it's all the constant refreshes you can get online?
Yeah. Of course, I call it homework. I had to do it. I had to keep up on issues, and I still try to keep up on issues. We've got possibly an appointment coming that we're hoping that we get to the president, and so I'm still trying to stay brushed up on issues, and I have to study it and I have to stay involved in it. But since being on the inside looking out, everything I do now has got a grain of. I don't always believe 100% of anything. I always try to figure out what the angle is. Why did they say that? Why would they want to do it that way? Even people that I trust to know. and I think that's a safe way to be. I think that's a lot safer
Mm-hmm.
because those people don't live in my shoes. They don't live in my community. They don't, so I have to apply the way my folks think here and what I was elected for and how I was elected to try to make those moves. And sometimes it doesn't always work real well. Sometimes it blows up on you. Ukraine's a good example. That was a hard vote. That first vote I voted for that. But, I was told that 17% of the world's grain comes out of the Ukraine region. So all these folks were going to starve to death in Africa and everywhere else if we didn't get that grain out. And this was when the war had started. They'd shut the ports down. So I thought to feed the world for 17% of grain, I would do it. So I did it. That was a conscious choice on my part. But, in my last election, that was used against me, that one vote. So, some things, and would I do it over again, knowing what I know now? No, because I got a little more exposure to what that 17% represents, and I was hoodwinked. But that's okay. I have to answer for my votes and answer for what I do and what I say.
Definitely. Are there any misconceptions that you had about being a congressman or being in politics?
Yeah, everybody talks about how powerful you are when you get in politics. Don't believe that. Don't believe that because you're automatically you're answerable to 770,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
Those are your bosses, and the day you forget that's the day they replace you.
Right.
And it's talking about all this power you have. I've never been a power person. I enjoy harmony. I enjoy people working together. I'm big on local government.
Mm-hmm.
I know you had Sandy Stimpson on here, the mayor, and you've got one of the county commissioners, Connie Hudson, coming on, and local government is real government. Those people that really make things work. Local government is the best government because they live here. They're here every day. They understand it and they see it. So you gotta protect local government and support it.
And in an election sense, more people vote in national elections than their locals. Do you know of any strategies or ways that you could promote people to be more involved in the local ones where they have more of an impact?
When people finally figure out that if they want to change the direction we're going, they're going to have to vote.
Mm-hmm.
And Trump's proven that. Trump brings out voters that nobody else would a lot of those people would never vote at any election. But look at the Amish. They've never voted in an election in their lives, in their existence. They've never voted. But they come out and voted for Trump. I mean, that's the type of involvement that we've got to have from our people. We'll have a local election here and we may get, I'm going to pull some numbers, 15, 17% of the people that are registered to vote will actually vote in it. You want 15% of the people to determine how your future's going? Mm-mm. Well, you get one vote. You better get it in there. And if you can take 4 or 5 of your buddies with you, take them with you. We should be in the 30s to 40s, if not even 51%. People should be voting. Mm-hmm. We have a constitutional responsibility, as far as I'm concerned, to vote. So get out and vote. It's simple as that.
Speaking of bringing your buddies with you, how'd your personal relationships change once you became a congressman?
Well, you're just not at home as much. And so many of my friends are my church friends. So, my wife and I, we've got the same supper club we've had for, 35 years. We get together once a month at someone's home. But being in Congress, you miss all of that. So I can't tell you the number of weddings and funerals that I've missed, because you're busy in Washington or you're off negotiating something in another country. And that really works on your friendships. Mm-hmm. But, you try to call them, you try to stay in touch with them. When you're home, you make sure you're at church. You get to mingle and work with them. It's a stressful situation just because of time. It's not a matter of did you want to. Now, the cool thing about it is the moment I came out of Congress, I still had those friends. Mm-hmm. And somebody told me a long time ago, says, you go into politics, remember who your friends are. And if you do it right, you'll have them when you come out. Because your political friends are just political friends. As soon as you get in a position you can't help them anymore, they're going to move to the next political-oriented person. That's just human nature. I'm not judging them. But your friends are your friends. I had lunch with one the other day, and I said, how can I help you? He goes, I just want you to know you were my friend before Congress, and now that you're out, you're even more my friend. And I thought, now how cool is that?
Yeah.
that's a touchdown there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I would like to talk a little bit about AI and where you think that's heading and what the U.S. government can do to get us ahead on the world stage for it.
Well, I think AI is out of the box. I think controlling AI is impossible. I think AI has been out there for a while. We just don't understand it. When you talk to your Series and you tell them what to do, that's all AI.
Mm-hmm.
And most of us, especially my age, don't understand that. You're having a conversation. We had a conversation one time in the office with all these young folks, and I was talking about Raleigh Fingers. He was a baseball player. And I said he had this huge mustache, and he'd take this mustache wax and wind it up. And, an hour later, a mustache wax came across my phone, an ad for mustache wax. Now, what's the odds of that? But that's AI listening to your phones. So AI is out of the bag. How are we going to use it? How can we use it in a positive way, and how we can use it in a negative way is really the determination of that. I do not consider myself to be an expert to talk very much about that. I think we need to get the smartest, brightest minds. I don't care if they're 19 years old or if they're 70 years old. I don't really care the age. I know that seems to be a big stirring spot right now with Elon. But we need to get those smart folks and come up with it. If China can do it for a few $1,000s, we should be able to do it for the same amount.
Yeah, I agree. Well, what do you think of Elon and Vivek's involvement in politics now?
Well, everyone's trying to read more into Elon than actually there. All Elon, and they explained it to us before it ever started. I was still in Congress, and they explained it. Elon's job was to go through the numbers and identify areas where there is possible problems, where there's overspending, where there's fraud, where there's abuse. We just on and on. It is not his job to cut. It's not his job to close. It's not his job to do a lot of these things that they're labeling that he's doing. He's not doing that. Now we've got to have Congress that's got enough kahunas about him to step up and start shutting some of this stuff down. USAID is a good example. They've got to take a whittling knife to that thing and start chopping it up. You can still ship that peanut butter to those starving kids. You can still help those orphanages that we help. But let's get realistic. How about instead of $40 million, we look and see what it really costs? And it's going to take Congress to get that deep in the ditches. It's going to take Congress to take that particular money and split it up in those committees and start figuring out what can we take out and what we can keep. Then it moves to appropriations, and appropriations can deal with it after that.
Yeah. I look forward to seeing what comes from the truth. And
well, it's going to hurt everybody. And I told my wife, and I tell everybody the same thing. For us to fix it, everyone's got to suffer the pain. You say, well, what does that mean? Well, it's going to touch you in some way. You're going to get a student loan, or you may have something that is going to get pulled back or chopped or whatever, and you're going to go, oh, man. I mean, I've got a friend of mine, he wanted all the college tuitions paid off under Biden because his daughter still owed $2,500 on tuition. I said, you're going to sell the whole country out for $2,500. That's what you're talking about doing. But, we're all going to hurt in some way from what we're doing, but we're $39 trillion in debt.
Right.
I mean, folks, that's real money.
Do you think that money's really repayable?
Sure it is. Sure it is. And it's not something that's going to happen under the Trump administration, but it is a new habit that we can learn. We can learn not to just automatically pay for a program because it was approved in a committee. We can learn to start asking more questions. Why? Why do you need this money for that program? Show us historically. Let's do some audits. The audit system doesn't exist in Washington. Washington doesn't care. They can spend it. They're almost like they're answerable to nobody. Trump, Elon, that group is making them answerable all of a sudden, and they don't like it. And it's going to get very loud. Social Security, everybody says, well, don't touch my Social Security. There's a lot of fraud in Social Security, so we've got to actually look into Social Security and see where that fraud's at. We're not talking about Medicare as in if you are truly a recipient of Medicare. I mean, you qualify and that's not it. But we do need to look and see where that fraud's at.
I agree.
As a taxpayer, you would think you would want to make sure your money spent properly. But you've got these Democrats now that are taking to the streets, talking about, rioting and whatever they want to do, because we've got this foreigner called Elon Musk that's getting his nose in our business. If it wasn't Elon, how about if it was somebody else, just a good CPA going through these books? Would you say the same thing about them? Because again, all they're doing is identifying the smart bunch of young people that write software that identifies this stuff. That they're not going line by line. Once it identifies an area, then they go line by line. But it's blowing my mind seeing the stuff that's coming out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is, and I'm glad that the steps are going in that direction.
And I hope from what he finds, it holds our congressman responsible to start doing the cutting.
Right.
That'll be the next big hurdle, because the stuff they're cutting is going to actually hurt them back in their districts, and that's going to be a normal progression that we've got to work through.
Okay, my last question is, what are your next career aspirations? What do you want to do next?
I don't know. I've been contacted by the Trump administration on 2 possible appointments. I've turned both of those down. I don't want to live in D.C. full time. Both of those required me to live in D.C. full time, and I'm not interested in living in D.C. full time. I've got grandchildren. I've given 12 years of my life to this community. I want to be able to stay here and watch my grandchildren grow up and be a part of their life. And so there's some other stuff that the administration's working with me on. It may or may not happen. I don't know. But, God's blessed me to a point in my life that I can stay at home and drive my wife crazy, which I'm sure I'm doing, because my personality is not to sit around. I'm always doing something. So I don't know. I've been in some real deep prayer about it. I'm in a real good place spiritually in my life. So I feel very comfortable with whatever God wants me to do. I did a little bit of missionary work in Africa. Maybe I'll go back in the missionary field.
Wow.
Maybe I'll go back and I'll do something. I just want to be where He wants me to be. That way I'll be happy.
Mm-hmm. Good. I'm looking for the kind of revelation myself too on what to do after school.
Yeah.
And
you got such a future ahead of you. I mean, just close your eyes and dream. I mean, you could be the guy that lands on Mars. I mean, you could be, I get goosebumps. I do. I've got goosebumps all up and down my arms right now. But I mean, you've got such a huge future ahead of you. You think of somebody like myself, I'm 67 years old, and I know to you that seems old. When you get there, you're going to go, well, that's not that old, But I saw the first man land on the moon. Things are moving such a rapid pace right now. Now we're talking about Mars. Now we're talking about technology that can get 22 miles in the air and read a postage stamp on the ground. I mean, we're talking about technology and the opportunities that you have as a young person. Man, the only thing that'll hold you back are the people that love you the most. Because they'll go, oh, Ethan, we don't want you to do that. You'll get hurt. Or, oh, Ethan, we don't want you to do that because, you'll be moving away from home. And they mean that out of love. They truly do. So remember that. But have no boundaries. Everybody says, well, what made you successful? Because I don't have a college education. I grew up in the streets. I'm just the average Joe that, would go and clock in and go to work, shovel coal. And I did Alabama Power. But I never give up. I just do not give up, because when you give up, you made it easy for the next person coming in behind you just to take over and finish and take credit. Just do not give up. Be willing to make changes. Be willing to bend and shape the way you need to in pursuing your goals. But don't think any job in your life is not a stepping stone, because what you've learned from, I had a job washing toilets one time, and I had 32 of those suckers, and you think, well, what'd you learn from that? I learned I don't want to go back washing 32 toilets, for one thing, but I also learned to take pride in the work that I did. And that is the American spirit. And whatever we do, we take pride in what we're doing. That is the stepping stone into the next step into your life. And yours is unlimited. Mine was unlimited. Yours is just through the roof. I mean, you're looking at technology. In 40 minutes, you can leave Atlanta and land in London. I mean, you're looking at technology, and we're there. We're there. We got it. We're there. I mean, you're looking at things that the world will become, not government-wise one, but it'll become, what happens here will automatically happen somewhere else. And it's just, it's things that we never see. Up to World War II, most people were never exposed to anything outside their own small communities. That's why you see, these small communities that, we don't need to get off into that, but I'm big into genealogy stuff. But World War II, you took all these soldiers over in Europe, they got exposed to Europe, and they came back, and the world was wide open for them all of a sudden. So yours is space. Everything in the future is going to be space. You're talking about wars in the future, they're going to be fought in space. So this is the technology that we're working on. These are the things that young people like yourself need to be applying yourself to, if that's your interest. Farm communities, my gosh, I wish we had more young people who want to be farmers. I mean, we can't exist without eating. So we need farmers. We need people that can learn to turn a wrench. I mean, if I was your age, I'd be looking at doing something with my hand, whether it's a plumber, a carpenter, or a pipe welder.
I did meet a farmer on a flight. He's got a farm in Illinois, and I'm talking to him about maybe he's, on the farm, everything's so fast paced, and you can't have someone that doesn't know what to do. But maybe like a couple of weeks, he said I can be out there this summer.
You need to. You'll understand. Farming is just not farming anymore. It's science. It's technology. It's a lot of things. I've been fishing this weekend with a pecan farmer, and he taught me things about pecans that just blew my mind. Taught me things about trees. He's a grafting. His specialty is grafting. So he can graft me a tree that will grow oranges, lemons, grapefruits, and I forget what the fourth one was, out of one tree. And I mean, it's just the science and technology there is what I'm getting at. We have to feed ourselves. We need those farmers. We need those people that can turn those wrenches. We need people that can build our ships. We need people that can assemble our planes in this community. Those are jobs that when you learn them, you'll never be without a job. Anywhere you go, somebody will hire you. So don't, I reach out to especially kids that are struggling with going to school. I made the grades, but I had no interest in college. I wanted to get in the workforce. I wanted to build my own companies. I wanted to do my own thing. And I do have the ability of not worrying about what people think. And that's a quality that you have people you respect and you want to hear their opinion. But most people, especially people that love you, will give you the worst advice because they're doing it for selfish reasons. And you'll do the same thing with your kids. So don't think your parents are any different.
Well, yeah, it's definitely a lot of food for thought on going to space and all the tech that, we all have, but the young people are most ample towards.
But you know what? It blows your mind. We know more about space than we know about the bottom of the sea. I mean, if they told me I could go to space today and never come back, I'd go.
Really?
If they told me I could go to the very depths of the sea and see things that man has never seen, but I couldn't come back, I would go. I mean, those are two places I'd love to be.
I'd love to see that underwater forest.
Yeah.
I'd love to scuba dive down there.
Well, once they get it where they'll put anchor buoys out there, and there's a lot of things that they can do so we don't drag anchors across some of those forests. But so much of that, and you got to think that was dry land at one time. So, that's what I kept trying to tell all my friends in the green energy stuff. Oh, we're going to change it a degree and a half. Hey, 20 miles, 30 miles out was dry land in the Gulf of America. What? Don't you think the earth is constantly changing, good and bad? So I don't know. We can get off into that. I get frustrated with that part of it.
I can understand why.
People drink that Kool-Aid way too easy.
Yeah.
Way too easy.
Well, that's all the questions I had for today.
Right. Well, I enjoyed it.
I did too. It's an honor to meet you and sit down.
Pleasure to meet you.
It's a one hell of a Tuesday for me.
There you go. All right. Well, I hope the professor needs to give you an A.
Okay.
If he doesn't, send me his name and his.
I'm doing it just for fun. It's not for a class.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Well, maybe you can figure out a way of making some money off of it.
Yeah, we're looking for sponsors. If you or any of your friends are interested.
I'm a politician. I don't sponsor anything anymore.
Oh, Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, you sponsor one and everybody wants your money.
Right.
Everybody.
Well, we can keep it between us. I won't tell anyone to
Okay.
sponsor.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you, Mr. Carl.
Thank you.
I would like to personally thank everyone who tuned into this episode of the SHC Division of Business Podcast. Our aim is to give young professionals insight into their desired field or potential job of choice. If you gain anything from this, or have any compassion whatsoever, please share with someone you see fit.